It is week 2 of the college football season. We are back with our best bets and picks. I'm Austin, joined by Logan. Today we're talking about all the big time action on Saturday, September 10th. We'll talk about 4 games. They're all time stamped down below in case you want to bounce around. We're going to give off our favorite underdog of the weekend. Let's dive right in. If you're new, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We have a lot of not only college football content, but also NFL content coming out the rest of the year. So do those 2 things and let's dive right in. Now, last weekend, Logan, wasn't the best week. I mean, the fans had a good week. They were 6-4. They're 7-5 on the year. Myself, off the bad start through week 0 and week 1. I was 3-6 last week, 5-10 on the year. So I'm turning around to week 2. Logan, another winning week, is 7-6, and your best bet of the week does cash. You're up to 10-6 on the year. And let's dive right into this first game, arguably the biggest one. I think this is where college game day is. The Alabama Crimson Tide, the #1 team in the nation, travel to Texas to take on the Longhorns. It's an early kickoff at 12 p.m. Eastern time. Alabama, not a surprise. See them 20.5 point favorites, over under 61.5. And not a surprise. See the fans on Twitter. You guys voted 77% of you guys are on the Crimson Tide. Logan, are you joining them or where are you going in this game?
I would like to join the fans on this one. Trust me, I considered it, heavily. I considered Alabama because I think it's either Alabama or you play a total. I don't really know how you trust horns down to get the job done. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the over 61.5 in this one. Look, the way I look at this, each team was able to put up 50 points against inferior opponents last week. So these offenses are humming. I mean, against inferior competition, they took care of business. They moved the ball up and down the field like they needed to. Alabama, 560 yards against Utah State. Texas did give up 259 yards to ULM last week. So Texas's defense has been better. But they are not seeing anything like Bryce Young, right? We expect Bryce Young and this offense to make a statement similar to kind of what I watched Oregon happen to poor UGA. I mean, UGA just steamrolled them, told them, hey, guys, you don't belong with us. I think that's sort of what we're going to see Alabama do. I don't think Alabama's going to hold back at all. 5 of Alabama's touchdowns last week also came in less than a 2-minute drive, which is very important because I want quick scores. Texas, on the other hand, they also had some quick scores too. 4 of Texas's touchdowns last week came in a 2-minute or less drive. We like to see, these offenses being able to move up and down the field efficiently and not have to chew, 5-6 minutes off the clock. I also expect Alabama's defense to key heavily on Bijan Robinson, the running back for Texas, and make Ewers beat them through the air, right? I mean, if you shut down Bijan Robinson, you're going to make Texas one-dimensional, which is favorable for an over, right? Texas is forced to have to throw the ball, maybe some quick 3-and-outs, maybe Alabama gets good field position. And Alabama is the type of offensive juggernaut that is capable of putting up 40-50 on their own. If Texas doesn't bring their A game, I really do like the over in this one.
I kind of like that pick, Logan. I considered joining you with the over. Instead, I'm going to go to the Alabama, the moneymaker, the wagon, first quarter spread, -4.5. It's a little bit juiced, I think -120 on DraftKings. But look, Alabama's been a wagon on the first quarter and first half spread since I was coming out of the womb. This team has been dominant in the first quarter. People just pick it every single week. They did it again last week, catching it with ease. And look, I think Texas does keep this game closer than people think. I think Ewers and Robinson's 100% playing on Sundays in the next couple of years. But I think they keep it close. But I think this first quarter, maybe it's a little bit of humble pie. This is an Alabama team that comes out firing on all cylinders. And we know Nick Saban, one of the best game planners that the college football has to offer. So I think they come out good, easily, quickly. I think this defense by Alabama can definitely get it done. We look at Bryce Young. I mean, this guy's great. 5 touchdown passes last week. Logan already talked about it. Quinn Ewers, he's got a cool mullet. I think I saw a cool tweet that he actually had his car towed in the last game. Like, I think they're going to get a little bit humbled by that. Will Anderson Jr. coming off the edge in the Alabama defense just to start the game. I mean, it's different facing an SEC team like Alabama, a team with guys flying all around the field. I think it might take a little bit. This is like Texas's Super Bowl, in my opinion. Like, they are coming out and they're going to give it everything they got. But I think Alabama kind of slaps them in the face throws the first couple punches and gets those, maybe a 7-0 lead, maybe a 14-7 lead after the first quarter, which would be great for your over pick. So I think Alabama just have a better game plan, be able to stop Bijan Robinson as best they can, make Ewers beat them. So I'll take Alabama first quarter spread, and then I'll just get to sit back, root for some points for you, Logan, and that's my pick of this game. So hopefully, Logan, Alabama's treating us nicely, and we can both cash out for that one. Let's move on to the second game. Talking Tennessee Volunteers traveling to the Pitt Panthers. This game's at 3:30 p.m. I think it's an ESPN or ABC kickoff, and we got Tennessee actually favored by a touchdown. 7 points on the road, over under 65.5, a high total for good reason. The fans, Tennessee, 62% of you guys like the Volunteers minus the touchdown. And look, Logan, I'll let you start this one off again.
I'm going to be taking Pitt +7 in this one. Look, I really do like Pitt to be able to cover this spread and to keep this one close. Now, Pitt last week, for any of you guys that watched that game, it was an absolute classic. They're coming off a tough fought win versus the West Virginia Mountaineers. They won 38-31. They really did get the job done. And that offense looked really good during it, right? Slovis, the transfer, 308 yards in passing for Pittsburgh. And they got a lot of chunk yardage plays, which I think is going to be key against this Tennessee defense. They averaged 12 yards per pass in their last game versus West Virginia, a decent West Virginia defense. Now the running game was non-existent. I think this is going to be the key, for Pitt. They're going to have to just throw the ball all over the field, right? They only average 1.9 yards per carry. I would like to see them be, have the running attack against Tennessee, but it's okay, right? Because chunk plays are important against Tennessee, who gave up some chunk plays of their own, right? They still allowed 6 yards per pass against an inferior Ball State team. I think the passing attack will definitely be there for Pitt to be able to move up and down the field on Tennessee. Tennessee's offense, too. Now, look at the box score. They just absolutely steamrolled Ball State. But you have to kind of dig a little bit harder, right? 5 for 13 on third down conversions. I mean, under 50% against Ball State. What does that transfer, over to a better, more improved Pittsburgh defense? Also, they were 3 for 3 on fourth down conversions. Look, I mean, Ball State might allow those fourth down conversions, but if you try to get cute hypo and you try to, convert it on a big time opponent like Pitt, I don't think that's going to work all too well. I think the Pittsburgh defense will have a game plan against Hendon Hooker, make him kind of a drop back passer, some sort of QB spy, some sort of pocket contain. If you turn him into a drop back passer, I don't really trust Hendon Hooker to be able to be accurate and to get the job done. So I do love Pitt to cover and to keep this game close.
Logan, I absolutely love your analysis, which is why I'm squad riding with you. I'm taking the Pitt Panthers plus the 7 points, but I'm going to take it a notch higher because they're my best bet of the weekend. I really like this Pittsburgh Panthers team plus the 7 points. Much prefer it at 7. I would not take it. 6.5 is fine, but you get that chance if they do lose by a touchdown, at least get your money back. Now, last week, my best bet was the Tulsa, Golden Hurricanes, and they lost outright. They were minus 6.5. They lost to Wyoming. I'm coming back for a vengeance today. I'm getting that 1-1 record for that best bet. Now, for all the reasons Logan already talked about, you got Pitt coming off that emotional win in the backyard brawl against West Virginia. They're much more battle tested than this Tennessee team that just played Ball State, an inferior opponent. And Tennessee on the road last season, team that struggled, 2-2. They beat Kentucky by only 3 points. So they failed to beat, in their 2 wins, they didn't even win by a large margin. And with UCF, Josh Heupel was the UCF ex-coach. I mean, I was a UCF fan and still went, an alumni. I know what Josh Heupel's teams do. They always struggle on the road. We did it. You saw in 2019. He started in 2018, but that was kind of a layover year from us being undefeated. So in 2019, fully with all of his coaching staff, we were 3-3 on the road. Temple and FAU, the only 2 wins, they won by 7 or more points. Look, Temple and FAU during those years, much worse than this Pitt Panthers team. In 2020, when you're thinking about COVID and all that stuff, fans weren't really in the stadiums. They were 4-1 last year, but still, gave up a ton of points, and I believe Hooker is good. I think Hooker's a very solid quarterback, like Logan was saying. It's the very guy that wants to get out on the outside of the pocket, make plays with his legs. But you look at it, and we're going into this year, Pitt had the 4th best ranked defensive line in the preseason. I think this line will be able to get pressure on Tennessee, get pressure on Hooker, maybe force him into some errant throws, maybe an interception or 2. I think this Pitt team at home getting the plus 7 points, I think it's too much. Maybe they lose by a field goal. I think this game's going to be close. Josh Heupel he doesn't like to blow out teams on the road. So my best bet of the weekend, I'm going with the Pitt Panthers plus the 7 points. Logan, you cashed your best bet last weekend with your Gators. Who are you riding with this weekend?
This week, I'm going to a smaller game. It's not as big as the Florida-Utah one, although my Gators clutched up hard for me. I'm going to the Army versus UTSA game, and I'm taking Army plus 2.5 in this one. This bet kind of seems like it's out of left field, but trust me, guys, this is a heavy public fade for me, right? I see over like 90-something% of the money and the bets all over UTSA. And when it always draws my attention when one of the service academies are only getting plus 2.5 against a very high-powered offense like UTSA that could run and hide. Right at first glance, I feel like you're going to have a lot of people saying UTSA should absolutely blow out Army. But let's talk about Army's run-first offense. Right, it's a service academy. This is what they do. 202 yards last week against Coastal Carolina. Tyrell Robinson really did show out. 9 carries, 135 yards, and a touchdown. I need a big performance from him today. Obviously, this is what they do, right? The service academy. Army averaged 5.2 yards per rush. Look, if I could get a duplicate performance against UTSA, averaging 5 yards per carry, we'll be in a really good position to cover this one. Even playing from behind, though, Houston last week versus UTSA, Houston ran for 140 yards on that UTSA defense. So they definitely showed some cracks because, Houston was playing from behind in that whole game. And I was watching that game because I side bet on UTSA. And I was just like, wow, their defense really does look like, Swiss cheese. Let's talk about UTSA for a second, though. They threw, obviously, for 337 yards last week, but they still lost because of that defense, right? It was a game, to me, that UTSA shouldn't have really lost, but the defense just, proved to be a liability. Houston was 13 for 21 on third down. UTSA's defense could not get off the field, right? Army last week, 5 for 12 on third down, 2 for 3 on fourth down. Look, it's a service academy. They do go for fourth down and lot. If fourth down and 1, you best believe Army's going for it. That's what they do. They want to win the line of scrimmage. They just want to push you around. And I think they will be able to push around UTSA. I'm confident in Army winning the line of scrimmage and the time of possession for us, which are 2 keys to cover this plus 2.5. And that's why it's going to be my best bet this week.
Logan, I absolutely hope you can move to 2-1. I really like that team. I think you look at a team like UTSA, they feel like a team that wants to outscore you, and that leads to a lot of possessions. They think they can score on a higher number of possessions than you can, but a team like Army is going to control the time of possession. This is a team that's going to limit those number of possessions. So I like that pick. I think you got a good chance to cash and go to 2-0, but let's move on. You didn't take your Gators as your best bet this weekend. Only right. We talk about them as the Kentucky Wildcats travel to the swamp, taking on the Florida Gators. Florida, minus 5.5, over under 51.5. This game kickoff at 7 p.m. Eastern time. 69% of the fans, are on the Florida Gators. I'll start this one off. Sorry, Logan, but I'm going to ride with the Wildcats in this one, plus the 5.5. I think this line is a complete overreaction to what happened. Now, a lot of people are riding with the Utah Utes, and, they came into the swamp, they lost. It was 7th-ranked team. A lot of people were riding with them. They obviously lost. Now, I think people are like, oh, dang, the Gators are back. This is the team. Anthony Richardson, you see his pump fake. People are like, this guy's a Heisman winner. Look, I've seen this Florida Gators team. They got a new head coach, but I've seen them play over the last couple of years, and I don't think this team is as good as people are hyping them up to be. And I think the Kentucky Wildcats come in here and maybe humble that Gators team a little bit. That's celebrating like they won this, the national championship after beating Utah. Now, you look at this team, moral of the story, I looked at that Gators defense, and I think you'll admit it, Logan, this defense had its holes. This team probably almost should have lost. They were going into overtime potentially till they got the interception on the 1 or 2 yard line. And look, I just think they were undisciplined, 7 penalties last week. And, I think the Kentucky Wildcats got something to prove. I mean, you think about the Gators. They owned Kentucky for the longest time, beating them in 31 straight games. But Wildcats quietly have won 2 of the last 4, including 1 in the swamp. And I believe this is a close game. They give me 5.5. Give me that field goal. Maybe losing by 4 points is crucial here. Look, Kentucky's going to focus on stopping the run. I mean, it's no secret. They're going to make Anthony Richardson throw the ball, and I think they can do that. I mean, you look at Kentucky, very good QB, Will Levis. 300 yards in week 1. People are really hyping up this QB battle. I think Will Levis will be the guy that looks a lot better than Anthony Richardson. I think this Gators team has absolutely celebrated this whole week of this practice. I don't think this team will be that focused coming into this game. I think the Kentucky Wildcats, play spoiler here, get me this plus 5.5, potentially even win it outright. So give me Kentucky plus the points. Who are you riding with in this one, though, Logan?
So I'm actually going to be joining you. Surprise. I'm going against my Gators this week. It does pain me. I'm going to go ahead and take Kentucky with the points because you have to be a savvy bettor in this one. You have to understand the ESPN hype train is just out of control for Anthony Richardson. And whenever the hype train's out of control, I usually like to look at the lines more. And the line in this one, just kind of sticks out to me, right? Kentucky only getting, 5.5 in a very hostile swamp environment. UF's defense to me last week, as you kind of mentioned already, Austin, they give up way too many yards for me to comfortably back them, right? I would need them to absolutely shut down Utah for me to comfortably back them. Kentucky's a very capable offense. They can definitely move up and down the field. UF gave up 230 yards rushing to Utah. That is just too many rushing yards to a Kentucky team that is able to run the ball, right? Kentucky will use Cavassier smoke and take the crowd out of the game. That's honestly what I think they're going to be the plan of attack. I'm old enough, unfortunately, to remember years back when Kentucky and Benny Snell came into the swamp and all they did was run the ball. And there's nothing UF could do to stop it. And I really do think that we're going to see a sort of performance like that where they're just going to go ground and pound. They're going to try to make this game ugly. And an ugly game does benefit Kentucky spread in this one, right? If you look at last year's matchup too, Will Levis, only 87 yards passing last year. And Kentucky won that game outright, 20-13, shocked the Gators, put Gainesville into a sad place for sure. Kentucky's defense, though, how they're going to cover in this one, they have to key on Anthony Richardson's running ability for sure, right? UF had 283 rushing yards last week against Utah, which is how they won, right? In miraculous fashion. Now, Kentucky last week only allowed 111 yards to Miami of Ohio. And I know what you're going to say, oh, Miami of Ohio, inferior opponent. But it's still sort of impressive to keep an opponent just above that 100-yard mark. And I think Kentucky's going to give Florida a hell of a fight, and that's why I'm going to take them to cover in this one.
I like to hear that, Logan. We are squad riding on the Kentucky Wildcats. I like to see what we're doing. Now let's talk about this final game, and then we'll talk about the upset pick special. We're going to bounce back in that segment because we're going to the Baylor Bears at the BYU Cougars. Now, it's a ranked matchup. We don't have a lot of them this weekend. This might actually be the only ranked matchup so far. But look, we got the BYU favorite is 3.5 points and over under 53.5. This is a late kickoff, 10:15 start time. 70% of the bettors and the fans are on Baylor. Logan, where are you going in this one?
So I'm not going to take a side in this one. I'm actually just going to touch the total, and I'm going to take the over 53.5 total points. Look, I think at the end of the day, I think this is a track meet between these two teams. Each team last week had 573 yards of offense versus inferior opponents. First of all, that's kind of crazy. Think about that for a second. 573 on the dot for each of those two teams. So over 1,000 yards of offense combined last week. So these offenses have shown the ability to be able to move up and down the field and not settle for field goals is what I like to see. BYU also did surrender 20 points to a really weak, to me, South Florida team last week. They gave up 312 rushing yards to South Florida as well. So if Baylor wants to run the ball, BYU's defense hasn't shown a lot of ability to stop that yet. I expect Baylor to be able to run the ball and keep BYU's defense on their heels. I think that's going to be the plan of attack for Baylor. Now, Baylor's offense as well. We'll talk about, Blake Shapen, 17 for 20 last week. I love accurate quarterbacks for an over, right? Like there's nothing more killer than third and short, a slant route or something. They just sail it right by. Well, Shapen, we have two sort of accurate quarterbacks in this one so far on the season. Jaron Hall also for BYU, 25 for 32 last week. He was accurate, 261 yards, 2 touchdowns last week. So, we should have two really good, solid quarterback plays in this one. And Brooks at running back for BYU, 13 carries, 135 yards against South Florida. I know that South Florida's defense, Baylor defense, is a little bit better. But look, I think there's a lot of, offensive abilities here. And I just think each of these defenses are going to be sort of on their heels, trying not knowing which attack the offense is going to give them. So I think the best play in this one is the over 53.5 total points.
Logan, I like your pick, but I'm going to actually pick a spread in this one, and I'm joining the fans. I'm going to pick the Baylor Bears plus the 3.5. Look, Baylor picked up right where they left off last year. I believe last year they were 12-2, picked up right where they left off. 69-10 victory in their week one. Now, it wasn't against a very good team, but this team picked up. I mean, it's good to see them take care of those teams, and they ran for 259 yards. Like we were talking about, USF was able to run against this BYU defense, and they averaged 6.3 yards per carry. So they were able to get it done, and these two teams did play last year. Baylor won by 14. Now, that one was at home. This one's at BYU, but I think Baylor can come in here and win this game. Like, sure, BYU did beat up on USF, but USF's not a great team, and I don't think they will be all season long. So the fact they came in here, they went into USF and beat them pretty badly. I'm not too concerned about them. I am concerned that USF was able to get the ball moving and score some points on their defense. And Shapen looked solid last year, and so did this defense. They only allowed 2.9 yards per carry in that game, 13 for 32 passing. So I really think the Baylor Bears can get it done. Plus the 3.5. Maybe this is a field goal type game. They could even win this one outright. I think they go on the road, play a little bit of spoiler to BYU in their home opener. And I'm going to be riding the Baylor Bears with the fans plus the 3.5 points. But Logan, it's time. It is upset pick season. Now, last week you had North Texas. I had Cincinnati. They both didn't get it done. We need to bounce back. And I'm going to let you start this one off. We need some value. We need an underdog. Who do you think is going to pull off an upset this week?
I'm going to a Pac-12 showdown this week, and I'm going to Stanford versus Southern Cal, and I'm taking Stanford plus 280 on the money line. And look, I want to preface this pick by saying last week, obviously, just an epic, crash and burn for North Texas. The Mean Green did not show up as our underdog. But for me to consider this pick sort of successful, I think Stanford, bare minimum, has to cover the spread in this one. And I think they will cover the 9.5. Look, Stanford always gives USC some good games. Stanford even beat USC last year, 42-28. Everyone is falling in love so much, in my opinion, with USC's offense, with Caleb Williams, with Lincoln Riley. Everybody loves them some USC this time of year. But I think Stanford is really going to try to spoil what they're doing. Stanford's defense last week, only 59 yards passing allowed versus Colgate. I know what you're going to say. Well, that's Colgate. But that's still really impressive. To hold an opponent under 60 yards passing in a whole four-quarter game is very impressive. So their defensive backs and all those guys on the defensive side of the unit have shown the ability to go out, play some sound football. And they're going to have their hands full, of course, versus Lincoln Riley and his cutesy little offense. I think sometimes Lincoln Riley might even get a little too cute for his own liking. Stanford, they'll play smash mouth football. and just try to win up front, which is a football team that I definitely want to back in my upset pick, right? The spread isn't even double digits also, because, Stanford will run EJ Smith, last week, 11 carries, over, 118 yards. So I think the odds makers are telling us that Stanford's going to try to make this game ugly. USC obviously scored 1 million points last week. For Stanford to be able to, only get 9.5 points playing at home behind the home crowd in this one just smells of a fishy line and of an upset possibility. Also, for quarterback on Stanford's side, you got Tanner McKee. Tanner McKee is more than capable of lighting up USC's defense, right? He went 22 for 27, 308 yards passing and 2 touchdowns last week. So this is an experienced quarterback that the lights will be bright, but they won't be too bright for Tanner McKee to give our upset pick, a chance this week. I'm feeling good about this one.
Logan, I actually really like that pick. I think Stanford, like you already talked about, they give them a hard time. And I think, if the books really thought USC was just going to come in and just beat the brakes off them, they'd be 14, 17-point favorites. The fact that it's under 10, it's a little telling. I think Stanford's got a good chance. Now, mine won't be as good of a value, but I do think this team has as great of a chance as any to pull off the upset this week, because I'm going with the Virginia Cavaliers plus the 180 on the money line versus Illinois. I believe they are 4.5-point underdogs. But look, last week I watched Illinois versus Indiana, and I would like my time back, because that game was brutal. That was as bad a football as I've seen in some time. Tons of mistakes made by both teams, including Illinois. A lot of mistakes, a lot of drop passes, and you just can't afford drop passes in college football and expect to win and beat a good team like Virginia. Virginia has the quarterback and the offense to get it done. Brennan Armstrong can give this team trouble. And look, Brennan Armstrong was very good last year. Threw for 4,400 yards, 31 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. And while he's not a big runner, he's not a guy that's going to, run down the field 100 yards. He did actually do that. 105 yards rushing last week. Now, I don't want to play too much into that. 64 of it did come on 1 carry, but he's got to cut down on turnovers. This whole Illinois or Virginia team as a whole, they had 2 turnovers last week, still won by 17 versus Richmond. Now, I look at this, the same exact matchup that happened last year. Virginia beat the brakes off Illinois, 42-14 victory in week 2. Let's get a little bit of deja vu. Brennan Armstrong, that team, gave that Illinois defense fits. 400 yards passing, 5 touchdowns in that one. Virginia is going to have to stop the run. This is Chase Brown's team. Look, this Illinois offense goes where Chase Brown takes it. And if they can stop the run, load up the box, make DeVito beat them, I'm perfectly happy. And now if Chase Brown's running up for 200 yards, I don't know if Virginia has a good chance of beating this one, but they know, they've seen this Illinois offense. They know DeVito's making passes that go soaring over his receivers, a lot of tip balls, a lot of interception opportunities. So I really like the Virginia Cavaliers in this one. I think they got a good chance. Make DeVito beat you, and I can live with this bet. I'm taking the Cavaliers plus the 180 on the money line.
Yeah, Austin, I love the pick. And if there's anything I know about Illinois, they're offensively, they're a liability. DeVito's not that accurate of a quarterback. And if we're talking just upset chances, I think Virginia has a really good chance on this one. I love your pick, Austin.
Yeah, we had to watch that game, but we were watching and texting about it, and that was ugly because obviously we both picked picks in that game, Illinois and Indiana. But that's going to do it. Those are our favorite picks of the week, favorite games of the week. We have obviously our NFL content coming out the rest of the week, so definitely check out that. I'll put maybe a video up on the screen once it does go live. We appreciate you guys as always for tuning in. Austin, Logan, we're signing out. We'll see you guys back again. We'll normally be posting these on Tuesdays. Also, as a side note, if you're listening to the video and you are going to the UCF versus Louisville game on Friday night, I'll be there. So if you see me, say hello. I'd love to chat with you guys. Let's have some fun. Let's have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys back again next Tuesday for our favorite college football picks. Peace out.